Welcome to another episode of Two Bid SoCon. I'm Jack Gold, joined as always by my guy Matt St. Charles. After a big day yesterday, we're recording this Wednesday in the afternoon. Big day in some SoCon hoops. First, Matt, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm better than you. I'm expecting everybody on Twitter to show you some love for the flu game you're about to put on.
Yeah, this is my MJ flu game today. I woke up actually last night, so I was at the Western Carolina game last night because I'm in Nashville. Thought it was just that I was talking loud in the arena. I went with my dad. And then my throat started hurting. I thought my voice was like, dang, I've just been talking too much today. No, woke up at 3 a.m. last night.
Ew.
Wanted to cry. You got that. I'm not really sick, but my throat hurts so bad, and I know I'm going to be sick. So I'm in the middle of one of the worst experiences in human life, the sore throat before you're sick, because it's inevitable. So yes, today has been rough. I played some pickup basketball too today for some reason. Couldn't go hard at all because I couldn't breathe, and I'm washed up like I'm like a 50-year-old body. So yeah, tough day for me, but it's better because of the big night we had last night. We'll transition there. I tweeted before all the games how big of a slate it was, just a bunch of good quality games. Samford took down Valparaiso 79-61. The Citadel took down Notre Dame 65-45. We're ignoring UNCG, and we're not going to talk about UNCG much today anyway because they've been missing MBJ, Mikal Brown-Jones, Player of the Year candidate. They've lost 2 in a row now to 2 good teams. High Point's good, but is really good, and so was Marshall's all right as well. But they dropped it. Doesn't move me a whole lot. But that was the only loss they had. Chattanooga, craziest buzzer beater of the year maybe, beats Gardner Webb 69-66. Furman takes down Presbyterian 76-61. Western Carolina, I was in attendance there, takes down Vanderbilt 63-62. And Mercer handled Queens 84-65. And Queens is nothing special, but Mercer beating anyone that's, not a horrible team by 19, 20 points almost is an impressive result. So much for SoCon ain't that good this year. We'll get there later. I made a tweet about it. We'll talk about that later. I'll rant about, my whole thoughts on that take there. But we'll start here first, where Matt was last night covering Chattanooga over Gardner Webb. Trey Bonham from half court to win the game. Insane finish. Matt, what were your thoughts on that game there?
That one was at halftime. I was like, this is going to be the most boring basketball game I've ever attended. Chat shot 28% from the field and 14% from three in the first half. I was like, oh Lord, they're just going to get run off the court. And Trey Bonham, obviously he was our big topic last week with the new 2-time transfer rule, and he kind of upped the ante with that shot. But outside of the shot, he played a very solid game. Dan Earl was very vocal about he's our best perimeter defender. And you really see him get down in his stance and try to defend guys, and that's kind of something they've been missing. Honor Huff brings you a lot offensively, and Miles Che has kind of been in a slump, but neither of those guys are elite defenders. Bonham kind of brings that rhythm, and I talked to him about that mentality, and he was like, that's something we've been missing is we get in these stretches and we don't kind of sit down and say, all right, we need to get a stop here. And so, you definitely saw him bring that in last night. They were down as much as, I think it was 16 or 17, but they just slowly started to crawl their way back into it. And Bonham is the big story, but Jan Zedek had a great night last night. I think he was 8 for 11. He had 27 points. He was just so important to keep their head above water and keep them in striking distance to somehow win that game at the end. Tyler Millen was solid all night too. We've been harping on their wing production. Demetrius Davis didn't offer a lot last night, but Millen was great. He picked up the slack. Biggest takeaway from that game for me is the struggle that Dan Earl is going to have finding the rotation with this group. Miles Che didn't play for the last 10 minutes last night. Earl went with Huff and Bonham and then Noah Melson. And then Sam Alexis didn't play in crunch time either. He went with Zedek and Millen down low. So, Earl said it's a good problem to have, but, problem is still a word in that phrase when you have, this many guys that you think can contribute. But they picked it up in the second half, shot 52% from the field and 60% from three, which is impressive. But, you don't want to dig yourself in that hole too often. I just think this team is going to need some time to gel. They have a little road trip going up to Milwaukee and then to Auburn. So maybe these back-to-back road games will be a good chance for this team to build some chemistry. But it was a great story that night.
Yeah. I think maybe I won't say we. I'll say me, because I think we both thought Trey Bonham was going to be good. More, it was just respect to the rest of the SoCon. I definitely personally underrated him. I don't know if I ever said it out loud, but the way I viewed Trey Bonham,
Trey was
the addition,
unhappy with this take that he's an older Honor Huff. He told me this. He's not happy with you for that.
That's great. Well, he still kind of is. Sorry. I mean, a good scoring guard, but dude, he can play, really. That might be their best player. That's what I've kind of, told some people, like, they just added their best player in the middle of the year, and he is so good. And that the Honor Huff comparison was more of just small scoring guard, because he's so good at getting to the rim, and that's not something they've had really. And I thought that was a problem last year with Chattanooga, was they didn't have somebody who could really apply rim pressure consistently. And they're a three-point shooting team and whatnot, but you got to have somebody change it up somewhat. I thought in the crunch time a few times he got to the rim, and relying on threes and stuff like that as your late offense, a lot of times it gets tough. You've really got to shoot it well, and last night they did. But I think that dynamic that he adds there is crucial, and part of why I thought, like, well, I wish last year they had Malachi Smith because he was so good at it. But that's a crucial thing, and I'll get talking about Western Carolina later, because I think that's one thing that makes them so good is Woolbright's ways of getting at the rim. I think an advantage they have now is on any given night, who's going to be their best? It could be Huff, Bonham, Sam Alexis, Jan Zedek. Last night it was probably Jan Zedek, who's had his ups and downs at times. He's been pretty consistent, but like he's got really high peaks. Like last night, 27 points. And he really seems to get it all in the flow of the game. It's not like he's a high usage player, I guess it would be the word. Like Honor Huff, if he's getting a big game, like he's taking a lot of shots, and that's good. Like that's not a shot at anyone. But I thought Zedek was really good, and it's impressive that maybe a team focuses in on one player, but there's three other guys that can really take advantage there. I also thought another thing with Bonham that I was impressed with, like Honor Huff didn't play good last night. What did he shoot? Like
He was 1 for 11. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And he eases those pains to where you're not even thinking about, Honor can't buy a bucket tonight. Having another guy that can score like that, really, this changes my outlook on the team a lot. And I don't think I had the same feeling until I've really watched them all play together. Just because he is that caliber of player that, first team all SoCon level guy. Like you said, Tyler Millen was better. That's a good sign. He shot it better. I think that's the biggest thing. And he did shoot. I mean, he went 2 for 3. Obviously, he's not going to shoot 66%. But if he can, just knock down open shots. That's really what they need from the wing position this year. It's been a struggle, kind of. All of those guys they've had play the wing can't knock down shots, or they just haven't been able to so far. And Millen obviously hit the big shot there late in that game. But if he can just, him or Davis or one of them, whoever it is, or Melson even, and I like Melson a lot. I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is his year, but just one of them can play the wing, play the three, and knock down shots. That's a huge thing. Another thing I found really interesting, they had Huff, Bonham, and Miles Che playing together at times. And you talk about the rotations, that is a big thing. And with the wings too, they technically can play 3 guards like that. And that's an offensive group, especially if Che gets going. And he did play well in their first game against Alabama and A&M, which we aren't going to talk about much, but he did play well that game, kind of in a lesser role than he's had, even though he still started. That brings a whole nother dynamic to their team. Overall, I'm, not wanting to overreact because they did play so horribly in that first half, but I thought the second half looked a lot more like what they can look like. And I left very, very impressed with their potential and really just the top of the SoCon now, because I feel like I've kind of not soured on Chattanooga, but become a little less excited about their potential this year.
Yeah, one more
yeah.
quick thing on them. We talk about the rotation of the guards. You talk about Huff and Bonham and Che and Melson. Rudy Fitzgibbons was a DNP coach's decision last night. Fully healthy, ready to go, didn't come off the bench. So it's looking like he's going to be the odd man out of that guard rotation, and it's also looking like Demetrius Davis is going to be the odd man out of that kind of 3-4 position for them.
Yeah, we'll see. I agree on Fitzgibbons, and I hate it for him, but I don't know if it's just tough at this point for him, just with how many guards they have. But I think Davis, again, I think he's going to continue to get chances just because he's just got
so high with him.
Dude, he's just got things that other people don't with his size, length, athleticism. If he can shoot it like he shot it last year, he's going to play. I always feel like I'm wishing for more with him, but even if you don't get that more, he can play the game. We'll go ahead and go to one of our questions, because that's one thing about Chattanooga questions. They pressed a ton. With Bonham available now, do you think they're going to lean into a smaller lineup, more press? I'll let you answer that one first.
Yeah, I certainly think, Dan Earl he's not playing the 3-guard lineup with Huff and Bonham and Che, in crunch time, but he went to that lineup for a long stretch there in the second half when they did apply the full court pressure, just because Bonham's energy and effort defensively, and he's also a very skilled defender, but he gives you, and then you put him with a Zedek and a Alexis, or a Zedek and Millen, whatever it is, 2 guys that can really defend at a high level, you benefit more.
So the second game of the night, or I guess not the second game of the night, but the other big result, Western Carolina beat Vanderbilt. What was that final score? 63-62. I was in attendance. I chose the route. I put out a tweet. Should I get a 3 TV setup and watch all the SoCon games? It would probably have been 4 screen, not TV. I don't have 3 TVs. So I got this big one behind me, and then laptop, phone, monitor. I can make it happen. But my thought was I can do that, or I can go. My family got Vanderbilt season tickets this year. Bad decision. We used to have tickets back in the John Jenkins days. Kevin Stallings is the coach, John Jenkins, Jeff Taylor, when they were good, and it was fun then, and we thought they'd be better this year, and they're fairly reasonable priced. But bad decision. But it's going to be fun to watch some SEC play throughout the year, and then as well as going to this game. But I ended up going to the Western Carolina game. Knew they would win, especially with the Vanderbilt was missing their big man, who's one of their better players. And I watched the Chattanooga game, flipped through some of the other games on my phone. I made it happen. But big result there. Western Carolina wins. And the crazy thing about it, and I've got a lot of thoughts, Western Carolina did not play well. They started out really hot. I think they got up like 20-6 or something, and I was like, dude, they're going to run them out of the gym. I have a friend who covers Vanderbilt who's like, dude, I love this Western Carolina team. And I was like, dude, they're going to run them out of the gym. And Vanderbilt clamped up, dude. They really shut down Western Carolina. And I guess shut down is maybe a little extreme, but they made it tough on them. They weren't getting open looks like they had been getting. Woolbright, I thought, and this is such a funny thing about Woolbright, he finishes with 22 and 12. And I did not think Vontarius Woolbright played very well. It's hilarious. And he hit.
How many
And
free throws did he shoot?
Let's see.
It's
He
always a big
shot
question with Woolbright.
7 for 10 free throws, which is probably on the lower end of the spectrum for him. But I didn't think it was his best game. He hit a big layup there late, with like 1 second left to go up. Almost knew it was going to happen. He is one of those kind of clutch players, and guys that can get to the rim late game. That's how you win games. A lot of times, it's really tough to rely on the 3-ball and tough shot making. Getting to the rim, that rim pressure that he provides there is going to be key. But here's what I thought. I thought Woolbright was poor. For some reason, he was really trying to get fouls, and I think he plays stronger a lot of times. And he didn't play very strong last night. The big thing, the refs were bad. I mean, I was sitting there. I was right behind the goal. He was getting hacked, and they were not calling anything. But I think part of it was he was kind of playing for the foul, and he can be prone to that sometimes where he just wants to get to the line, and he was maybe trying to oversell calls. But they were still fouls, and he was getting hacked on some of these shots, and they were not calling anything. He's got to play more for and ones rather than just 2 shots at the line. He wasn't really strong with the ball, but I also think maybe his usage was a little bit extreme. Every play, it was like, let's get it to him and try to make him drive, get in the post in super clogged spaces. Like late game, the best thing they did, and that's the reason he hit the game-winning layup on Tyron Lawrence for Vandy, was because they cleared it out and there was nobody there. Nobody there to, reach at him, grab at him, clog up space. And he got a bucket. I thought all game they just kept giving him the ball and letting him do his slow, matriculate down to the paint, which he's great at, but it can't be every possession. And it definitely can't be in, with bad spacing. So I thought that was one thing that I'll keep an eye on, because that's part of why I thought they struggled was he didn't have his best game, even though he still put up great numbers. Like his not playing a good game is a lot of people's best game. So, this isn't a shot at him or anything, but I thought Trey Jackson was a thing. I would have liked to see Trey Jackson get more sets ran for him. And I don't know that his numbers, let me pull them up. He shot
8 times.
3 for 8, but he had 1 3 get called off for a moving screen there late. I thought running sets for him late. He got some open shots. He looked a lot better than I thought he's looked at times this year. I feel like he's one you have to run more stuff for, because if you're going to let him create, he's going to take tough shots. And he makes tough shots, but this year he hasn't quite as much. I think he's got to get more stuff ran for him because he is that level of player that, I'm chilling out on my sleeper SoCon player of the year. He's not doing that. I'm sorry for that take. But I do like him a lot, and I think that's the guy they've got to get, easier looks, especially because he's shooting in like he was shooting like 34% the other day I saw. And it's because he's taking fadeaways and no easy shots all game. They got to run some sets for him. Russell Jones Jr., your number one fan. He was awesome again. I know Justin Gray actually tweeted after the game. He's a winner. He is, dude. He's a guy. He just gets it all in the flow of the game. He just played. I mean, especially when he's shooting it as well as he shot it this year. He had what did he have last night? He had 16 points, and it didn't feel like they were ever just going to him. Like it wasn't like, all right, Russell. And I would honestly like to see him sometimes attack people off the dribble more. He did get ripped one time going, late game, but everything he does in the flow of the game, he is just a winning player when he's shooting like he is, and he always has defended well, especially at his size. Another thing, I had DJ Campbell. I was thoroughly impressed with him. He missed a ton of bunnies, but dude, he was getting to the rack, and it was just shots he just got in his head. It was kind of overthinking. He just missed a bunch of floaters and whatnot. Yeah. He was impressive. He's a guy they've got to get more involved. Their ceiling as a team, if they can go away from – you don't want to go away from the best player in the league, but if they can not – it was almost like Luka levels of usage.
Right.
Where and he does. I mean, he does take a lot of shots, and it's awesome. Like, he can pass out of the paint. all that. But I think there's got to be more effort from the other guys or from the coaching staff probably to get the other guys involved more than just, Vontarius, here you go. Let's kick it out all the time. And that's how everyone really gets their points. I would like to see less of a Luka style offense, James Harden style offense, where it's just one guy with all the pressure on his shoulders every play. Because I thought the refs got to where they were like, all right, we're not calling anything. And that's what hurt them there. Because I thought Western Carolina did not play that well. It's past the first part of the game, and then they had a good stretch to finish the game to win it. They've got to get everyone else more involved. I'll go to you here. Did you have any thoughts on the game? I know I've just rambled on forever, but I had a lot of thoughts on the game.
Yeah, just a couple things from the box score. They really need to figure out the 5 spot because I really don't think Lampton is cutting it. 19 minutes last night and 0 points. I don't know how big of a factor he was in that game. I wasn't watching, but that's not what you want to see from one of your starters. I don't know if they turn to Bernard Pelote or Cornelius Williams or what they do, but that's probably their weakest link right now. And then the biggest thing that stood out from the box score was Vandy 7% from 3. How much of that was Western's defense, and how much was it just them missing open shots?
I could do a 45-minute podcast on Vanderbilt, dude. Oh my gosh, dude.
Fire stack.
Yeah, it's time. Their offense was everyone shooting tough mid ranges, but that's another thing. You talk about the bigs. I thought Lampton, he impressed me defensively. His length, he went straight up all the time, which is an underrated trait. Like not foul, defending without fouling. He impressed me, but at the same time, Cornelius Williams was a little bit the same. Dude, I don't know what they need to do. Those dudes cannot catch the ball. They just don't have. They're just bad eye coordination to the point where they're nothing. I don't feel like if they were open and Woolbright or Jackson or Jones threw him a lob wide open, I don't even feel that confident that especially Lampton would catch it and dunk it. Like there was a possession with Lampton where he had the ball, like got ripped, got it again, got ripped, got it again, hit it out of bounds. Like it was just unreal how uncoordinated almost they are. And I say that to say I thought Lampton had an impact on the game defensively just at the rim. And you almost have to play him just because of that. But at the same time, I was sitting there during the game like, dude, do you just have to play Colin Granger? Because Granger is limited. He can't defend at the rim like Lampton has. And he can't, vertically stretch the floor like Williams kind of can. But he knows his role, and he can catch the ball. He can catch the ball. He can pass it. And I know that sounds crazy, but they're so raw. And that maybe that's something they got to – that is something they have to work on, and hopefully they can get better. But they could not catch it. And, yeah, so I left pretty concerned, I guess, with that spot because if Lampton could or Williams both, if either of them could just be coordinated offensively, I don't even know. I don't want to sound too mean, but they really struggle with holding on to the ball or just catch and finish, keep it high finish, stuff like that. It does concern me overall. I'll move on here. The Citadel. What? What?
Oh my God.
That's probably the craziest result of the night. They knock off Notre Dame 65-45. Not them winning isn't as crazy as a 20-point win.
Oh my God.
And let me start off saying this. People are like, Micah Shrewsbury is a good coach. They're going to get this turned around. But all this stuff, I'm like, y'all do realize the Citadel was picked 9th in the SoCon.
Exactly.
And I think I feel good about my take earlier in the year that I thought they could finish outside of the bottom 2, which sounds like a low standard, but really that's where they were.
Yeah.
But like, how does Notre Dame lose to the Citadel? I'm sorry, but when it's that bad, are we sure it's going to work out? And this is a Notre Dame podcast, but that's insane to me. I've got some thoughts on them. Shout out Elijah Morgan, dude. He had 19 points. Had 3 points, 3 rebounds, 4 steals. has been shooting it really well, and he played at Notre Dame his first 2 or 3 years of college. He's a transfer from Notre Dame, going out, transferring down because you're not playing at Notre Dame, and
Giving
going
up
and playing them and
buckets.
beating them and getting, being the reason. He had a big game. He had some tough shots. He had one kind of between the legs step back three that he knocked down over a guy, hit some, off screens. He was impressive, and that's got to be the best feeling in the world, going out and beating your old school that, you couldn't play for. And I don't have any clue if there's bad blood, but even if there's not, even if you're still cool with everyone, the fact that you went out and you beat them has got to feel
Mm-hmm.
good for him. I'm super impressed with what the Citadel has done this year. They just have, and not that I think they're going to do anything in SoCon play, but they just have a lot of solid players. And we know Ed Conroy's a good coach. He's, tenured, proven, but they just have a lot of solid players. And that's also why, I don't feel like they're going to do a ton, because they don't have anybody that jumps off the page at you and is really, a star, but they just play good basketball. Like I said, they're, they've beaten all the teams they should beat, really. And guys on the team are just solid. Do you have any thoughts on them? And if not, I can say a little bit more about them.
Yeah, you talk about Morgan, but they had three other guys in double figures that stepped up to help them win that game. The biggest takeaway from that one is obviously the defensive effort. They gave up 16 second half points to Notre
Yeah.
Dame. Notre Dame shot 26% from the field and 13% from three, and then made 53% of their free throws. I saw VMI scored 49 against Longwood earlier in the week, and I was like, oh, VMI, come on, that's sad. And then Notre Dame in the ACC comes out with 45 points. I was like, guys, that's unacceptable.
Again, he might be a good coach. I'm not like super familiar with him, but dude, that's embarrassing. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, so it was fun to scroll through Twitter and see, how excited the Citadel was. It's a big win for them, but then I just see they stopped at a Dairy Queen at 11 o'clock at night outside of South Bend, and I think it was Morgan, but they made him get outside the bus and take a picture with his ice cream cone, and they tweeted it. I was like, you guys deserve this one.
Yeah, no. I'm just impressed. I'm impressed with, and this is, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I'm impressed with what they've done this year. Madison Durr, good player. Quentin Moore-Brown wasn't anything special at Vanderbilt, but he's just a solid player, solid role guy. I think he had 15 and 11, something like that. Last night, AJ Smith, I didn't even talk about him. He's averaging 16 or something points a game. He didn't shoot it well, and they still won by 20. And it's just a really good win for the program. I'm happy for those guys. Happy that the SoCon bottom feeders, I guess, are better. Or, sorry, VMI. And in my thing about the SoCon not that good this year, I had a Longwood fan in my mentions. Didn't even know those guys existed, but saying like VMI, they're not good. Dude, congrats. Like, toughest job in the country. Congrats that the one team that lost, like two teams lost the last 2 days, and one of them was a team that has all freshmen playing basically. So yeah, weird. But I'll move on. We'll talk about Samford. Samford wins over Valparaiso and Belmont. I'll let you start. We'll start first with, Valpo's yesterday. We'll start with Belmont a few days prior. By far their best win of the season. You watched. What were your thoughts on that game as a whole?
Yeah, the big knock on Samford over the course of this winning streak that they're on is that they're not playing anybody. They started the year with Purdue and another tough game. I can't remember what that one was. But then they go on this VCU, right? Then they go on this long stretch of just playing awful teams. Belmont, we saw them play Furman earlier in the year. That one was kind of back and forth. So, it was kind of a good measuring stick for Samford in this game. They had 6 guys in double figures against Vanderbilt, and they continue to just score the ball at such a high level that it's hard to, I've tried to critique Bucky McMillan's rotation, playing all these guys, but when they're scoring this much, it's kind of hard to not like what they're doing. Biggest thing that I've seen in these two games is Jermaine Marshall doesn't look like himself completely, which, is kind of expected. He's trying to get back in the groove. I don't know the severity of that hand injury he had, but you can tell he's just trying to ease himself back in. And Valpo, the biggest story from that game was their press. I mean, they did the Bucky ball. They played that. They full court press the whole game. They rotated guys seemingly every time out. Held Valpo to 35% shooting and 20% from the field. It's just run and gun, pressing and doing what they do. AJ State McCray just continues to be, one of their most consistent players, if not their most consistent player. He's shouldering the load offensively a lot of times. Like when you see Marshall not have it on certain nights, AJ State McCray seems to be the guy to pick up that slack. So that's good to see, because then once Marshall does start to get it back and you have all these other guys, you can make some noise in the SoCon.
Yeah, I have that written down actually. State McCray, his last 7, 13 points, 19 points, 18 points, 12, 22, 9, 18. He's putting up numbers, and especially without Marshall. And I said that preseason, somebody else has got to step up other than Marshall. And it's turned out to be, a lot of guys, but him becoming kind of a go-to option is big for them. I also, Achor, like he's averaging like 14 and 6. He's shooting, low volume, but he shoot 37% from 3. He had a stretch there. I didn't even see it. I was kind of prepping because I've been watching him, and I've liked him since the beginning of the year. Just thought he plays hard, but like he had a stretch a few weeks ago. I didn't even realize where he had 26, then 25, then 20. Like what? Just kind of crazy. I don't know where did that come from, but yeah, they've been impressive, especially without Marshall being himself. I've been super, I've been kind of wowed by Bucky McMillan continuing to get away with playing like a million players. I still think that it's going to be cut down at some point. But last night, players that played significant minutes, there were 10 of them. And that's not even including Lucas Walls that's had moments this year where he's played well. Just a crazy kind of way they play. And I said this, don't look now, but Garrett Hicks played the most minutes last game. I've been pushing for it all year. Led the team in minutes, double figures in 3 of the last 4. He might be figuring something out. And that, crazy. He's averaged 14, 15 points per game his whole career for 4 years, and now he's come to Samford and he's averaging just 6 a game. Kind of feel like a guy that's that proven is going to figure it out at some point. That's another just facet to what they can do. They just got so many guys. And I was really excited to see him beat Belmont. Excited is maybe not the right word there, but just because them beating a good team, because they have looked really good. And I think one of our questions was about them shooting. They're one of 2 teams in the country to shoot 48.9% from the floor, 40 from 3, 76.9 from the line. That's a crazy specific stat there, but still, I get the premises of it. Can they keep it up? I don't know if they can keep it up, but I do love that they have so many guys they can go to. And maybe the solution is, like, if a guy misses his first couple shots, and I hate that you go to another guy because you got that many good players. But it's kind of working out to where, like I thought preseason, they've got so many question marks, but there's so many dudes that could be good, and they've all kind of showed flashes. I thought Riley Allensbach has looked awesome at times. He's going to be a great player, and he's been good this year. He had 15, I think, against Belmont. Just a solid player, a really big. That's a big recruit for them to get. He was a guy that was like a 3-star, and in the SoCon getting 3 stars is fairly impressive. They just got a lot of guys that have impressed me this year, and I still think the rotation's got to dwindle down to at least 10 guys consistently, but probably maybe even less. But they've got so many options. Buckyball has proven to work so far. They got upset last year in the tournament, but they've been successful. I'm excited about their future.
Yeah, one
This year.
factor on their shooting is, you think about him rotating all these guys, eventually fatigue is going to overtake other teams. Like you look at Chat, who isn't as deep as a Samford is, but when you're rotating, 11, 10, 11, 12 guys a game, not all the bodies aren't going to be as worn down, and they're going to be able to shoot at a high level like all season because they can play so
Yep.
many guys.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Furman lost to Tulane, then beat Presbyterian the other night. I watched the Tulane game. That was potential for game of the year. I think they lost 117, 110 in double overtime, I think was the score. Sucks they lost, but they were down fairly big in the first half. Came back. JP McGee's was awesome. 29 points for him. The game was awesome. There was a point in the first overtime where it was like Tulane 3, PJ Smith 3, Tulane 3.
It was fun.
JP McGee's 3, Tulane 3. Finally, I think McGee's or somebody misses a 3, and then Tulane hits another one. All back-to-back possessions. To go on top of, I'll talk about the ending a little bit. One of the dumbest plays ever. Pegues hits what you thought was a game winner. Clutch. He's got that Michael Bothwell feel to him where he's just going to hit clutch shots. Thought it was a game winner. I have no clue in the world, and they didn't show the replay close enough. So I still don't know. I don't know how 0.8 seconds got put on the clock. I watched it happen.
Too much.
And I was like,
it was
oh, yeah,
0.5 at
0.4. Yeah. I have no clue, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I know for sure because they didn't show the replay on the broadcast enough. Yeah. They just kind of went with it. But then even dumber, and I don't care, it may not have been a foul. It's probably something that most of the time gets not called. But I'm totally forgetting the big man's name that fouled.
Molnar.
Yeah, has his hands. Just go straight up. And I feel like that's what every coach says all the time. I was saying it at the Western Carolina game because when Vandy had 1 second down 1 point, I'm like, if I'm in that huddle, I'm saying hands straight up. If you're going to jump, don't go point A to point B. You stay in that one spot.
Right.
Don't foul. And Molinar, for no reason, hands over, and it was a tough call. I'm not blaming him for, but just a dumb play. Like, what are we doing there? So somehow the guy after you think Pegues has won the game, the guy catches, turns around, and gets fouled. So even then, even with 0.8, I can't believe you did all that in 1 second. I'm not going to act like I have looked at the clock. It may have really been in time. But crazy game. Just crazy, kind of controversial finish. But at the same time, it's your own fault when you do something like that and put the refs in a position where they can make that call. I also wanted to say the original SoCon Ain't That Good from a name drop, Mid-Major Madness on Twitter. They said the SoCon ain't that good, y'all. They said it in the first half with Furman without their 22 point per game scorer, losing at 6-2 Tulane. Said SoCon ain't that good, y'all. And I think I retweeted. I was like, certainly you're not talking about this game. That's not what. And you could tell he was upset that I said that. He's like, I've been thinking it for months. Last night proves SoCon is good. No matter what you think, that's just a ridiculous take to me. And I don't know why because that account's great and I followed it forever. That's the number one mid-major basketball watcher in the world, the guy that runs that account. I've got slight beef with him for that. And then there's another point early in my career where I reported something on Malachi Smith. And then he went on and said the same thing like 30 minutes later, said sources. And it was something that only I knew, like I had found. He said sources, and I remember I had a little beef with him there because I was like, dude, you don't have sources. This was me like researching and finding this out. You didn't You'll get sources. But all that aside, that's a great account. And I don't know why why are you hating on mid-major basketball when your account, the only thing you do, the reason people love it is because you're always rooting for mid-major basketball. I just thought that was a weird tweet and a weird way to go about things, especially with a league that is maybe they're top heavy, yeah, but they've got, I mean, especially after Bonham being back at Chattanooga, you could fast forward or freeze me. My body is stopped. Wake me up back in March and you tell me any of those top 5 have won the SoCon and are in the tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised and that I would think I would be okay with picking any of them depending on matchup to upset a team. I just think the league at the top is really good this year. It's going to be just like it's been every other year. Outside of last year, they were kind of a down year, but it's going to be the typical SoCon, a really good mid-major league. Wofford had a decent finish tonight, which we're not talking about just because neither of us, we were prepping for this show when Wofford was playing, but they, played Oklahoma State close. They've been better. ETSU's been better. Citadel has been definitely better than a bottom feeder program. Mercer's had their moments, big win the other night. VMI is the only team in the SoCon that hasn't shown anything all year, and that's probably the toughest job in the country. So SoCon's good, and I'm excited to say that. One of our questions had to do with, is 2-bid SoCon a legit possibility? And I'll let you answer that, Matt, first. What do you think? Do you think it is a possibility to have 2 teams, or our name for this podcast? Do you think they can get 2 teams?
It certainly is possible, but you're probably going to have a situation where, say Western Carolina somehow gets damn close to running the table, basically. Like, say you have them sitting with 2 losses or something like that, and they're the 1 seed, and they, lose in the conference championship game. Say they lose to Greensboro. Greensboro gets the automatic bid, and they're in the tournament, right? It's going to be hard for the NCAA to leave out a Western Carolina team that's, beat an SEC and Vanderbilt and beat an ACC team in Notre Dame. Granted, those aren't great teams in those conferences, but those are Power 5 wins regardless. It'd be hard to look at a team like Western Carolina in that situation and leave them out of the tournament and try to say they're not one of the 68 best teams in college basketball. But, I don't know that if a scenario like that didn't happen, that the NCAA wouldn't care to leave one of them out.
I agree. I find it very unlikely that it happens, and obviously that's every year. But just because the NCAA is so biased towards Power 5 teams, it's like, I saw someone saying this the other day, beating Vanderbilt is no small task, regardless of them being a team that's going to have a new coach next year probably. And the game that's going to count for like nothing as a win because they're going to finish low in KenPom and net and all that stuff. But it should, because going on the road and beating a Power 5 team is a big deal, especially when they've got the athletes they've got. I don't care how poor they are. Same with Chattanooga beating Louisville on the road. Sure, Louisville's not what they are. They're not good. Louisville versus Notre Dame, somebody tweeted at me the other day about that being the worst game of college basketball year. It will be probably. But still, there's just an intimidation factor to a point, and just a raw talent factor, especially a school like Louisville. Power 5 guys, everyone wants to go Power 5. I've had people I know that went Power 5, just go Power 5. Like, it's not like they would probably be in a better situation somewhere else, but that's where the best players want to play most of the time. Not kids a lot of times do not have a good head on their shoulders to, hey, I should go to this smaller school. That's just not how it works. So there's just something about that bothers me, that win for a Western Carolina isn't going to count for much because Vandy's not going to finish well. They may win 2 games in SEC play, but that is an impressive win still. So in saying that, I don't think it will happen because UNCG, they lost to Vanderbilt on the road. Good crowd. That was still when Vanderbilt had some people who still believed in them. They lost that game. That's going to go against them. UNCG's been missing their best player for 2 games. They've lost most of those games. That's going to go against them. Western Carolina missed both their bigs against High Point, who's a good team, on the road. That's going to play against them. It's just they choked against Gardner Webb. That you just can't. It's almost like you can't make any mistakes, and that sucks so bad. But I always think back to Murray State when they had Cam Payne a long time ago. They won like 28 straight games, and they lost on a buzzer beater in the OVC championship game and got snubbed. They didn't make the tournament. They were like 31-2 or something insane, and they missed the tournament. And that's just how college basketball is. The NIT is a prime example. The NIT is not going to guarantee regular season winners a bid. Boycott the NIT. I don't think I've said that on here. Boycott that stupid tournament for that. Nobody wants to watch, teams, Power 5 teams that don't care. Power 5 teams don't want to play in the NIT. And the players a lot of times show it. I think last year UAB, North Texas in the championship, they wanted to be in there. They wanted to play in that game. But yeah, I just hate that. Or actually Utah Valley wasn't North Texas. But that's the stupidest thing, and I just hate it for mid-major basketball in general because it is every year we see upsets. That's what makes March Madness great. I don't want to watch, 12-loss Oklahoma State play over Western Carolina or somebody like that just slipped up in the conference tournament. So got on a ramble there, and more hate to the NCAA. Just the money involved, and I understand it to a point, but
2 weeks
it is what it is.
On the NCAA.
Yeah, they're gonna ban me from covering games in the future if they listen to the pod. That's it for today. We don't have a lot more. We really wanted to touch on what was a huge day in the SoCon yesterday. As always, follow us on Twitter, like, subscribe on YouTube. Leave a rating, like whatever you can do on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll have this out Thursday morning. And to a good year in the SoCon. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone out there. We'll have another episode next week. And SoCon ain't that good this year, y'all.